Welcome to Inside the She Cave, Trailblazers, Innovators, and Rule Breakers. I'm your host, Cindy Glanzrock. On today's episode, Jennifer Raab joins me, a true force and undoubtedly a trailblazer, innovator, and a rule breaker. We explore the transformative power of building educational institutions, the importance of empowering women in education, and the impact and legacy of Hunter College under Jennifer Raab's leadership. Jennifer served as the president of Hunter College in New York City for an impressive 22 years, steering the institution through challenges and triumphs, joining Hunter during the aftermath of September 2011, immediately creating a sense of purpose for the faculty, staff, and her students. Jennifer raised close to $1 billion for the renovation of historical landmarks, purchasing and development of new properties, establishing groundbreaking arts, academic, and nursing programs. Her high standards, vision, and determination shaped Hunter into a powerhouse for education, arts, and social change. This remarkable journey started with a humble beginning in New York City. We reflected on her experiences as a student at Hunter High School, an all-girls public school where she made a commitment to demanding excellence from herself and to those around her. Jennifer recounts her trailblazing educational journey through the Ivy League institutions, receiving scholarships to pay her way, and her civic service as the New York City Planning Commissioner, fueling her passion to later give back to Hunter College. Her drive and dedication to provide opportunities for many first-generation college students while also building a platform of excellence.
I understood what it meant to be a first-generation college student. I understood how difficult that is in so many socially adjusted ways. And I knew it was like to work and pay your tuition and pay for books and live while you were going to school. So that I really connected with the Hunter student.
Jennifer recounts heartwarming stories about notable alumni and their contributions to public policy, human rights, literature, and medicine. We learn about the history of Hunter College as the birthplace of Social Security, the nurturing and encouragement with higher education awards, including 2 women who received Nobel laureates. She shares some notables, such as the Dalai Lama, who visited Hunter, reflecting on the unique relationships and connections that bind the diversity of individuals with an accessible academic institution that strives to turn out students with high academic and moral standing. As Hunter now bids well to Jennifer Raab's transformative era, the foundation is strong and the building blocks are many. We look forward to seeing Jennifer continue to innovate as the future unfolds her next bold move. Please join us in celebrating a civic and educational leader with an unwavering dedication who has left an indelible mark on higher education and the empowerment of women as a distinguished alumni herself. I feel privileged and honored to be here today with a woman of great distinction. She is truly a trailblazer, innovator, and rule breaker, Jennifer Raab. Thank you for joining us today, Jennifer.
It's really an honor to be with you.
As you described, it was an honor to be the president of Hunter College for 22 years. And of all years to start was on 9/11, 3 months, I believe, after 9/11. You created an exceptional institution, and that was already exceptional since 1870 when it was launched by Thomas Hunter. I believe the only one that has had a longer tenure than you of 37 years from 1937. He, I understand, is an early feminist, and we will talk about how important Hunter is as a platform for women. We'll speak about, of course, the Eleanor Roosevelt and her public policy school. We'll speak about so many wonderful things. And you stepping down broke some people's heart, including mine, since I live around the corner, and I've always admired you. And I feel so fortunate to have you here today. I do want to quote something you wrote. I don't know if it was in the Daily News, but I thought it was beautifully stated, if you don't mind. You described yourself as passionate for Hunter and its students. It's beautiful what you've done. So start us off a little bit about your humble beginnings, I think in Upper West Side, I believe, and how you became a Hunter student, why you became a Hunter student, and why it's so near and dear in your heart. As you described to me, you were an alumni, and being an alumni meant a lot to other people when it came to also raising money. So please take it away, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's so wonderful to be with you. And when I was in sixth grade, many of listeners will remember, if you grew up in New York, they would come to the various public schools in the 5 boroughs. And this girls with the top scores on tests were invited to take the Hunter High School test. So 10 of us from PS 173 on 173rd Street, Fort Washington Avenue in the great neighborhood of Washington Heights. Lynn Manuel and I shared that. We also both went to Hunter High School.
Oh, Lynn Manuel, who you had speak at one of the
graduation speaker. He was my final commencement speaker. It was very, very moving. It was a beautiful job. But they came and said, you can take this test. So 10 girls got on the number 4 bus with our number 2 pencils. And we went from Washington Heights to get off at 5th Avenue and 68th Street and take this test. And a few months later, they would tell the principal who made it. So 3 of us, and that's the word they would use then, made it. I was told I was accepted. But it wasn't, Washington Heights was really a tight neighborhood. And people didn't, always understand why you would leave. So you were told, you can't go downtown. You're going to become a snob to go to that fancy neighborhood, and you can become a man-hater to go to an all-girls school. And my mother, who was a very tough woman, who I think I got so much of my fortitude from, who had been widowed when I was 8 years old. I had an older sister, a few years older, still left in the house, and 2 older siblings. She really didn't have a lot of wherewithal. She had not been educated, but she knew what that meant as access, that you could get a great education. So she didn't care what everybody else was saying. She said, you're getting on that bus. And it really changed my life to go to an all-girls, demanding, excellent public school. And that really colored my vision, Cindy, for what I did at Hunter.
So that's the Hunter High School that you started at.
Yes, and it started in 7th grade. So we were very young. Elena Kagan was a few years behind me. I was actually her big sib, as we used to call him, big sister.
Tell the audience who Elena Kagan is.
Elena Kagan, of course, our Supreme Court Justice from the Upper West Side. And, so we've known each other a long time. We knew each other at Harvard Law School. But it was a very important place for empowering women, all-girls school. And as you know, from someone who went to an all-girls school, the smartest kid in the class is a woman, the best painter, the best, the best scientist. So it was very, very empowering. It set me on a course for demanding excellence of myself and for the students around me.
It's interesting that you had this high bar as a result of maybe what you learned at Hunter, and then you proceeded to go on to wonderful other educational institutions, which is so important for women. And so many more women are doing that today, but weren't back in the day when you were going to school.
Still is true. When I was at Harvard Law School, only a third of the class were women. Many more women in law school, many more women on faculties.
And you were at Princeton before that at
Cornell. I was such a New Yorker. When I got to Cornell, I saw a staircase coming out of a store. It must have been going to a basement. And I asked somebody if that was the subway. So it just never dawned on me that there wouldn't be a subway where I was going. So it was an adjustment.
Did you get scholarships to put yourself through school? I mean,
I did. I was a full scholarship student at Cornell, incredible generosity and scholarships, full scholarship at Princeton, and scholarship support at Harvard as well. And I think, Cindy, that's what really connected me to want to come back to Hunter College to give back. I understood what it meant to be a first-generation college student. I understood how difficult that is in so many socially adjusted ways. And I knew it was like to work and pay your tuition and pay for books and live while you were going to school. So that I really connected with the Hunter student.
And if I recall, one of your great stories of so many, because you're the best storyteller, I could just listen to you for hours on end, but was Mr. Cooperman and his legacy and what you were able to do with that great story when you cold called him in order to end up with $41 million for Hunter. But could you share that one story of how you got that money?
So one of, I think the challenges is you're a big school, and also as you and I were speaking before I started Hunter, the system had gone to an open admissions where everybody was accepted, and many alums, because they had worked so hard to be accepted, were turned off. And I really needed to bring them back and get them excited and show them how incredible our student body is and how much a dollar meant in a public system. One of the great things about a Hunter is the bang for the buck, as we say. You will get so much for your investment. But interestingly, Hunter, after the building that all of you know on Park Avenue, that beautiful Art Moderne building, was a second Hunter building there. So the first one that Thomas Hunter built in the 1870s burned down, and a Bronx campus was built. And the men in the 50s, after the war, in the early 60s, were sent there because we were an all-girls school. So Mr. Cooperman went to the school, the Hunter in the Bronx. And when I called him, he said, well, why should I talk to you? You took away my school. We don't have that campus anymore. And I said to him,
if I recall correctly, Mr. Cooperman also came from very,
very modest, lived in a walk-up tenement, Polish immigrant parents. And he said, well, you took away my school. And I said, when I was at Hunter High School, when Elena Krieger was at Hunter High School, open admissions started. There was no room. And they said, we're going to close Hunter High School. So we took our little picket signs with Save Our School, SOS, in front of Rockefeller's townhouse. Roy Goodman, many of your listeners may remember, wonderful leader, saved our school. But I went to school in high school in an office building in the 40s. So I said, what does where a school is located have to do with what a school has done for you? Where's your diploma from? So this man and I got this wonderful story out of him. He studied science. He went through college in 3 years. He got the last scholarship and the last seat at Penn Dental School, the last instruments that his parents had to buy with their last $25. In 6 weeks, he realized he couldn't be a dentist. And the dental work was not for him, but then nobody would talk to him because he took the last seat, the last scholarship, and his parents' last $25 for the dental instruments to practice on. But the dean of Hunter welcomed him back, said, what do you want to study? He said, I'm interested in economics. And then, of course, from there, he became one of the most stratospherically successful businessmen in American history. So once I got him to tell me that story and to realize it didn't matter where the building was, Hunter was still doing what we did for him, Cindy. We make the American dream come true. We give you an opportunity to get a really excellent education at a price you can afford with financial support. So what we did for Leon Cooperman in the early 60s, we're doing for our recent Rhodes Scholar, Tamara Jean, who was a daughter of Haitian immigrants and, then went off to my Rhodes Scholars. Yeah. So it's the same story. People look different. A Haitian woman, a Jewish Polish man, same story, opportunity and excellence.
And if I remember correctly, Princeton Review called it the crown jewel of CUNY.
We are very proud of that. It is our aspiration, and really is always my aspiration, that public education is not second class, that we can deliver a high quality education with the extras. And I feel it was a blessing. I went from Hunter High School, first gen, to 3 Ivy League schools. And I feel there was a purpose to that for me to see what the best in the business with all the resources give their students, to come back to a public institution and challenge myself to raise the resources to give those same special opportunities to my kids at Hunter. And we achieved that.
Over and over again, by the way. I love what you said about the scholarship that was received, and you said you didn't have to go to Cambridge in order to receive this. I don't know if it was the Rhodes Scholarship, but it was interesting that you can get a scholarship here at Hunter College. You've had Nobel laureates, you've had, the list is long on types of scholarships, from the Marshall, the Rhodes, the Schwarzman.
We proved right, exactly. Schwarzman was so proud of that. We're sending kids to China. It's an incredible program that Steve Schwarzman created. I said I knew the talent was in the building. Immigrant students, first generation. They need to build a resume. They need to get the right internships. They need the interview skills. They need the essay skills. But the raw talent, Cindy, it is there. And we proved that. And it was very exciting.
I mean, you've had a Nobel laureate, I'm sorry, 2 women Nobel laureates, right?
Right. So we're very proud. I mean, it's talking about the empowerment and the cijಖηಖ. So Thomas Hunter gets kicked out of Ireland in 1870 because he's too progressive, comes to the United States and says that teachers should be educated past sort of an early middle school education. So what we were doing before that is 14-year-old girls would graduate from school and show up in front of the classroom a month later. And he said, no, teachers should be educated. And that really meant women, because who was teaching? That they deserved 2 years of content learning, a year of pedagogical training. How do you become a teacher? What's a good teacher? And then a clinical experience. So he not only started Hunter College as what was called a normal school back then for teachers, but he started a Hunter model school so those teachers could train to be teachers. And that model school still exists today as Hunter Elementary. So he believed that women should be educated in the 1870s, and all women. He wrote something very old-fashioned in the words, but think of the modern context. He said that the Negro will sit next to the Jew, who will sit next to the Gentile. 1870, suggesting that Black women, Jewish women, deserved a higher education. Extraordinary.
Well, that is extraordinary. You know, I was seeing a photo of you with the first Hunter student awarded the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, and I was
amazing.
I was just I was glowing as if I knew the student or, personally.
And it's such a perfect story. So I love that. The wonderful Ann Tish, who started the Young Women's Leadership Academy, I called her immediately because the young woman had attended an all-girls school. And what does she want to do? She wants to be a teacher. So smart. She wants to be a teacher. And she said that she wants to be the first Bangladeshi school chancellor in New York City, and she's off to Cambridge. So it's a real triumph from Young Women to Hunter.
Jonathul Chowdhury, is this who we're speaking?
Yes, exactly.
And she just graduated, right?
She's in Cambridge now. Yeah,
wow, amazing. That is wonderful.
When you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's how I felt at Hunter. I mean, the days were long. There are a lot of challenges. We're running the largest school in the largest public urban university system. We have 24,000 students. We have campuses all over Manhattan. Always something going on. But when you can be at a graduation and see the American dream still coming true, but every day I felt optimistic. And when we would have visitors from other countries and they would criticize the United States, I'd always say, tell me that what happens in this building can happen in your country, because it can't. The level of mobility that you can take immigrant kids with no resources, or people who came to New York to be a dancer, and then wasn't going to work out at 33, and they come back and get a bachelor's degree and go to be a nurse. We had a wonderful program for Orthodox kids who left the Orthodox life because they wanted a liberal education. They had to get their high school diploma. But we take them in and we give them special resources. And we send them off to medical school. And they may be 35, but they're making it. So the mobility that a Hunter provides.
Because you know how to tap into, as a litigator, you really know how to fight for things. I don't know if it was a fight, for example, when you got $2 million for Jewish studies, since you're just speaking of Jewish studies, Clara and Larry Silverstein. But I'm sure it's a finesse rather than a fight. But it's really,
I guess it's really, sometimes students would say, because they're interested in going to law school, and one of the things I like to tell young people is the law is a wonderful career, but the skills you get from being a lawyer are so transferable. And one of them is having trained as a litigator and using 2 incredibly excellent firms, Cravath and Paul Weiss. They make their associates work hard, but the learning you get and your ability to become an advocate, really, it's a fighter, but it's an advocate. And I always saw Hunter as my client, and I was out there trying to convince you why you should invest in this wonderful product, the Hunter student, the Hunter faculty member. why would give back to society to do that. And that skill as a litigator certainly came in handy when you're really advocating.
You know your client, you know who you're speaking to. So you know that, for example, again, with Larry and Clara, that would be important. And now you have a whole program that you said something very important the other day. The Jewish studies is more important to people, especially what's going on the campuses these days, with anti-Semitism or people just acting out about Israel. It's like learning about Jewish history is important for students who are not Jewish.
The truth is, the Jewish study program will serve Jewish studies. The most important are the non-Jewish students.
Exactly.
So we got a wonderful gift from a Holocaust survivor, and we do a non-credit certificate program, Cindy. So students of all backgrounds, not Jewish, spend a semester, 1 day a week, learning about Jewish history, learning about the scourge of anti-Semitism, visiting the Holocaust Museum, going to shows like parades so they can see the cultural aspects of anti-Semitism. They get a certificate at the end for having completed the Cooper program. How amazing is that, to take a student who had so many preconceptions that are not positive about Jews, and at the end, they really understand what Jews have been through. They understand why anti-Semitism is so hateful. And they can be part of this army of people supporting Jews in the future. So it's a really important program to have a real leadership on the campus.
And you said the woman who gave it was, in fact, a Holocaust survivor.
She gave the gift, and we worked together with her on this program. And every year she comes to speak with the students.
And what is her name again?
Eva Cooper.
Eva Cooper.
And she went to Hunter High School, went to Hunter College, and really sees this value. And Professor Garrett has built this very varied program of Jewish studies. So they walking tours of New York, there's Jewish food tours. But to get that student who only hears just the most negative things about Jews to understand the culture and appreciate it and love it, it's just, it really is that the Silverstein gift that helped us bring her here is really the gift that keeps giving in so many ways.
Well, you've inaugurated so many programs, but buildings like the Baker Bridge, uniting the two campuses. I know that was a big deal, $15 million that were donated. And I love
sometimes people would tease me like, wait, you're talking about real estate so much, you're a college president. But I
Exactly.
think certainly you have expertise and know this. In New York, it's about real estate, right?
It's about real estate.
And you said you passed the Hunter campus. We are what we call affectionately a vertical campus, meaning we're all really, we're crowded into 4 buildings and elevators, right? So there's always a challenge to have enough space. And it was an amazing experience. It was actually a great New York story. That building that the Bakers made it possible for us to buy belonged to the Archdiocese.
I understood that.
It was the Kennedy School for Special Needs Children. And it was no longer really a suitable place for young children with developmental disabilities. So the wonderful Kevin Sullivan, Father Sullivan, who runs Catholic Charities, said to me, I know you're always complaining you don't have enough space. Would you like to buy a building? Well, in New York City, of course, you'd like to buy a building, but can you buy a building? And the Bakers made a $15 million donation, which made it possible for us to do that. She's a renowned Broadway theater producer. And so I want to be one of the few schools in New York City that has an entire building devoted to our phenomenal theater program. So that was very special.
And it's quite a dramatic building. I mean, I remember walking into it actually with the 19th century columns for New York. That's
absolutely
a big deal.
Beautiful historic building. And then we found a way to connect it. Beautiful Guastavino tiles. And then we found a way to make a bridge so you can go to the campus. And now all of our buildings on 68th Street are connected by bridges. That was the final bridge that we built. You can actually walk from 67th Street and come out on Park Avenue in 69th.
Yeah, I think you used the quote. Bakers are bridge builders in so many ways.
So many ways.
Well, the Public School for the Arts is a program that I'm so impressed by, and I would love to touch on that too, and what you've done there.
So important, right? If you think about it, we love people to teach, to study the arts, but college is very, very expensive. And you may hit it as an actress, or you may not. So to acquire the kind of debt you have to acquire in a private college really makes it hard to go into a career. So my vision really was to create this public school of the arts. And we will train actresses, we will train musicians, we will train dancers. Maybe even more importantly, we will provide the whole industry, entertainment lawyers, playwrights, the people who help usher into people into your seats, the people who help put together productions, the artistic directors. And even if you don't go into the business, you will fill the seats. So New York, as we know, is not going to survive if people don't go to the museums, don't go to the music halls, don't go to Broadway shows. So to have an affordable tuition and incredible faculty, we built an amazing creative writing program with Peter Carey. He's won 2 Booker Prizes. Gregory Mosher, Tony Award-winning director, runs our theater program. So you study with the best at a price you can actually afford. And then you have the freedom to go into the arts and give back to New York City as the capital of the arts.
Well, I'm blown away by the excellence that you attract. I was reading about Jody Gottfried Arnold.
So now Hunter, because of Jody Arnold, has the premier dance education program in the country. We train almost all of New York City's teachers who become dance teachers in the public schools. So we are giving the gift of dance through these incredible students that become teachers.
Well, if it wasn't for a public program, I think it was Boys and Girls Harbor, one of those Boys and Girls programs, Misty Copeland wouldn't be a ballet dancer today, and she wouldn't have a foundation, and she wouldn't be giving back.
So think about that in multiplicity, and think about in every public school having a dance teacher, and that's what Jody has made possible. And not just any teacher, but someone who is trained in the art of teaching dance. So our program is excellent. You're great artists, but you're great teachers.
And a beautiful state-of-the-art studio and classroom that you've created. So I want to come over as a dancer at 13. I danced in a ballet company and went to Europe. So I really appreciate having dance in my life.
You have to come visit them. We named all of our dance studios after women because we're a women's school. So Dick Gilder named a studio, gave us the funds to create a studio after his sister Peggy. And the Lasky family gave us a studio after Floria Lasky, one of our incredible graduates who was one of the pioneering women lawyers in entertainment law. And then, of course, the Jody. So that's very exciting. 3 studios named after 3 great women.
Well, if you get a chance, please listen to our podcast with Janet Elber, who's the artistic director at Martha Graham, who danced with Martha Graham. She was there 50 years on and off, and also Lori Bellalove with the Isadora Duncan Dance Company. So, some great women who have trailblazed and innovated and broken some rules in order to get where they were, but they were very interesting.
Amazing.
I'm curious about, because as a curator, as you know, I place art in spaces like lobbies of office buildings, so they call me an art lobbyist. The Harper Montgomery, I guess, named the Burchard Professor and Director of Hunter Art Galleries.
I love that you asked that because I love what you do. We actually did a program with Jonathan Gray. So years ago, Blackstone bought renovating one of the Class B office buildings into Class A space. And a wonderful woman you probably know named Debbie Wish said, we should take the Hunter MFA students' art. And with Jonathan and Mindy's permission, we curated the office lobby of this new building in Bryant Park.
Oh, yes.
And it was very similar to the incredible work you did, where the lobby just came alive, but with their philanthropy, they supported the MFA students making very large works for the lobby. And it was so, so exciting. And it goes again to this issue of, think about it, Cindy, we have an affordable MFA for budding artists. They all have studio space. It's an amazing benefit. So it's still not easy. You're still a student. You're still living in New York City. But to think about not having a burdensome tuition and then to study with people like Juan Sanchez, Carrie Moyer. These are the type of people on our faculty. And Joaquin Pizarro runs this gallery program, recently just stepping down when he came from MoMA to Hunter. It's what we do as this public school of the arts, but I love what you do in the lobbies because it's very much how we originally started to promote some of our students' work. So I hope you'll come and look into our studios and maybe and put them there.
I'm happy to. I always am impressed with the Hunter College Arts Galleries that you have. And also when I saw that Mr. Leonard Lauder, had donated money for the curatorial studies program and for art history fellowships, I thought, well, that makes sense. You hit up the right person when it comes to art.
A wonderful professor who I'm sure you know, Mimi Braun, is Leonard's personal curator, helped put together the Cubism show, The Extraordinary, did all the research. That's the type of person that teaches at Hunter. So we have brilliant art historians, but they understand what you understand, which is you want to translate the knowledge of art history into curating skills. And that's really what we teach our students in our master's programs. They're in the top galleries. They're in the top education programs in museums. They're the top curators. And some will go on to get a scholarly, a PhD, but many of them form the backbone of the type of work you do, where you're really curating beautiful art throughout the city.
Well, it was exciting when I was speaking with Alice Aycock, who had her beautiful sculptures paper chase along Park Avenue in 2014. She was telling me she went to Douglas College, which is the women's college of Rutgers. Again, a women's college, as we're speaking about the importance of women's education. And then she said, and of course I got my AMA at Hunter. And I thought, oh my gosh, there you go. Hunter coming up again in our cijCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCC
also about 8 years ago got her MFA, and her work is all over the place. She was in the Academy in Rome, incredible another woman following in Alice's footsteps.
And to help other women, which is very important to me. We discussed how important it is to give women a leg up by other women. And especially if the Roosevelt House is something I wanted to speak of public policy and the importance of public policy. But I love the expression that it was Sarah who built it, as in, Sarah as in Roosevelt, Eleanor who
Roosevelt's mother,
Eleanor who sanctified it, which is, we know, Roosevelt's wife, and then Jennifer, who, of course, I would say more than saved it. You continued to nurture it and love it, and made it a great foundation that'll continue on in the future. So it's a national treasure for our new generation, as I think it was mentioned. And a lot of people don't know about this house, but can you mention how you pulled that off? Because I hear it was in disrepair.
So it's wonderful kind of coming together of different parts of my lives. I was, before I came to Hunter, the Landmarks Commissioner. So
yes, for 7 years, the Landmarks Commissioner of New York City.
So I knew that the home that Franklin and Eleanor received as a wedding present from his mom, she wasn't necessarily thrilled that he was marrying his cousin Eleanor, but she got used to it. And she built them a double townhouse on 65th Street. There was one surprise when they got there. She kept half of it for herself. So she moved in with
the mother-in-law.
It came with the mother-in-law. And Eleanor was known to say, I never knew when I'd see my mother-in-law day or night, because the first 3 floors were completely connected. And Sarah stayed, the Roosevelts lived there. They had their kids there. They moved up to Albany. Of course, they moved to Washington, but it was always a home base for them. And when Sarah died, they decided that they would provide an opportunity for Hunter College to buy it. Because over the years when Eleanor was there, this won't surprise anyone, she gravitated toward the women's college 3 blocks uptown. She was our graduation speaker. Cindy, I got to meet alums who said to me, Mrs. Roosevelt had us over for grilled cheese, and we would tell her about our basketball games. And I look at this woman, they're very tall, and I'm like, this is an amazing true story. She became friendly with the president. So Hunter had this opportunity to buy this double townhouse for $40,000. So they raised the money from alum, a crazy story, and used it. It was where all we had what we called non-residential sororities. So it was groups of women. They didn't live there, but they had their different groups. But they used it, and then because it was a public institution, sometimes it was maintained, sometimes it wasn't. CUNY went through a lot of financial hardship. So by 1991, it was completely shuttered, and you could not, water was penetrating the roof. You could not walk on the stairs. So when I was at Landmarks, I gave them a small grant for an exterior renovation. And I said, when I came, I said, we have a shuttered home of arguably the best president of the 20th century. Certainly, I'd say the best first lady of the 20th century. And people were saying, though, Hunter really had financial troubles. Why would you renovate something? Sell it. You could get money for it. And I said, that's just too short-sighted. We need to renovate it and give it back to these students to learn and to be engaged in the things that the Roosevelts care about. And that's what we were able to do, to build a public policy institute. I was fortunate enough to go to what was then called the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton. So I have a background in public policy, and we created a public policy academic program with a wonderful alum, Rita Hauser, who's a leader in human rights. She endowed the Hauser Human Rights Program. So we train young people to go to the UN to argue for human rights, both domestically and internationally. We have all these incredible public programs. And now, of course, we have one of your recent guests, Karen Maloney, as the Distinguished Eleanor Roosevelt Leader in Residence.
Yes,
so
that was
students
quite
are
a
meeting
day.
Congress people. They're meeting Congress people. They're getting internships. They're taking classes. And I think Eleanor and Franklin would be so happy to think about students learning about the importance of democracy, of social legislation.
It wasn't just Carolyn Maloney who became Dr. Maloney because of you and receiving the honorary degree, but also to have the Eleanor Roosevelt Public Service Distinguished Award for Nancy Pelosi up there in her stilettos, dancing with you on stage.
I was going to say, rarely does someone have higher heels than me on a stage. So I was
that
really
was one of my
impressed.
I was very impressed with both of you that day at the ceremony. That was quite a ceremony. So congratulations for pulling that off before you.
Very, very elegant. And she also loved this story that I told when I gave her the award. One of the great things that happened at Roosevelt House physically was that's where Social Security was born. So during the campaign, right after the campaign, and Roosevelt wins in 1932 November, but the inauguration those days was not until March. So those months, Roosevelt built his brain trust, and he created the New Deal there, Cindy. That's where it was all planned.
And the photographs that you have at the public policy school are extraordinary. The black and white photographs throughout.
Amazing to show the pictures of him. He invites his labor secretary in New York State when he was governor, Frances Perkins. And she sits down in his library, which we've fully restored now, and people can come visit from the public. And he says, Frances, I want you to become the first woman cabinet secretary in United States history. And she's feisty. She would have been on the show with you. She says, only president-elect if you commit to creating a social safety net in this country through legislation. And she nagged him at that meeting at Roosevelt House to say yes to what becomes Social Security. So first woman cabinet secretary. And that's why I felt, how could we not restore a home?
That's, by the way, a positive nag. That wasn't a negative nag.
No, not a very positive. A Nurja nag. She was just tough, and she was not going to say yes to something until she got what she knew, what she could do, right? Amazing. And to be a woman in those years, to be
So I would say he was
tough.
A feminist. He was a feminist.
I think we have to conclude that. That would be my conclusion. But so to restore a home. And Eleanor has always said it was his eyes and ears, right? She went out when he couldn't be mobile to be out. But when that choice is, how could you not restore a home where that history happened? And one of the beautiful things is we worked with historians to uncover those stories so that we could tell them and the students could know that Social Security, that unemployment insurance, that, so much of the labor protection all came out of the New Deal that was hatched in a building that they take classes in. How inspiring is that for the next generation of leaders?
Yeah, I had no idea that the birthplace of the New Deal was there. And now, when I went to see the photographs, I was just so proud, that he created, and he created all these arts, obviously WPA. There were so many great programs that came from it. Speaking of arts, so that were connected to that period when so many artists didn't have work and they were given work as a result.
Absolutely. And that was
efforts.
all the vision. That was all the vision that was hatched there. It's not the only story like that. Hunter has the only school in the world to have two women Nobel Prize winners in medicine in our alumni body. But we have a third woman whose husband got a Nobel Prize, and there are those of us who are still studying because we believe she should have been part of that Nobel Prize team, as acknowledgement as well. So I think it's not the only story in that show. But just on a more positive note, so we have Rosalind Yallow, who many people knows the name, and then we had Gertrude Elion. And
they were both Jewish women, I understand.
Both Jewish women. And when Rosalind Yallow graduated from Hunter, she was studying physics, and she was accepted in a physics PhD program. And the head of that program in the Midwest, Cindy, wrote to the Hunter president and said, I will not let her into this program because she's a New Yorker, she's a woman, and she's a Jew. Unless you, president of Hunter, promise to give her a job, because nobody's going to hire her. So she wound up going to another school, but she knew the prejudice against her. Elion was before her, and Gertrude Elion created some of the drug discoveries that have led us to all of the drugs that are used to combat AIDS and to care for AIDS patients, and many other basic drugs. She was an extraordinary woman. Her nephew called me and said, she left me her Nobel Prize. And he said, but I think I would donate it. I said, if you donate it, we will put it in the library. So every pre-med woman and man will see this and know that this immigrant Jewish woman came also, for humble background, went on to get a Nobel Prize. Look what could be possible for you. So I just love that story. And I love how he's donated the medal.
It's very, very important. And again, not to be negative, but when someone discovers something and they add something to the team, it's interesting how sometimes someone's deleted from the team. You don't really know why, except that there's egos. There's male egos, there's female egos. What's so important right now is that we build people up. So more women are confident, and they're confident builders. Because sometimes women don't have the confidence to do things that they're capable of doing or have already done, but don't want to get the recognition.
That's right. That's right. And I think one of the ways that really is effective is role models. So when I really made a very strong commitment to recruiting women faculty members, and particularly women scientists. And we've been so fortunate to be able to have a number of women minority scientists. So to think about a young Black student from New York City Public High School coming to Hunter and going into a lab class, and at the head of that class is a Black woman scientist, to send that message, you can do it. You can be a great researcher, you can be a great teacher, and you can be this role model. It's so moving. And I don't know that there's anything more important than modeling behavior, for first generation and immigrant students.
And it's not a scientist, but the Episcopal priest that you had, who was alumni, Pauli Murray, yes.
She came up from the South, and Hunter was one of the only places that accept her. She was a great student, and she went on to Yale. And Yale, about 8 years ago, named a dorm after her. And people were calling me, did you ever hear of this person? Of course we heard of her. We've been celebrating her for years. So we're glad Yale realized that. And then the United States government just put her on the quarter.
The NOW, right? National Organization for Women.
Yeah, she was a visionary civil rights leader, a very special person. Another woman that we're so proud of is Audre Lorde. So I was very, very excited to get the city council. I'm so grateful to them to allow us to name the street in front of Hunter Audre Lorde Way. And she was just another great civil rights leader, incredible writer, and incredible poet. Hunter High School, Hunter College. And I go back to, when Thomas Hunter said, Black women are welcome in the 1870s, we stayed true to that DNA. And I've heard so many stories of fathers saying to their daughters in Harlem, they would bring them downtown to Hunter and say, in front of them, the school, you keep up your grades, you can go to this college. So Pauli Murray, Audre Lorde, Martina Arroyo, the great opera singer, Ruby Dee. Ruby Dee was an amazing actress. She was also a great civil rights leader. And I was fortunate to have a party on my 5th anniversary. I had Evelyn Lauder and Ruby Dee at a party to just celebrate the generations of Hunter. They'll never forget that night.
Okay, so Evelyn Lauder was an alumni of Hunter, but I think you said, I don't know if it was not that she was embarrassed, but she never really mentioned that, she was part of Hunter, did she?
Yeah, Hunter went through a time when we had open admissions. There were people who felt, that it had been so selective, and now, the system people were not investing in it, and people were not graduating, and she wanted to come back and really celebrate what Hunter had done for her. So we really brought her back, and we showed her how the students were, studying things she had studied, but also now studying science that she had become interested in, launching the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. So Evelyn became re-engaged. We gave her both an honorary degree at Hunter College and the Distinguished Alumni Award from Hunter High School, where she was very proud to have attended. And she began through the Breast Cancer Research Foundation to support the cancer research of one of our extraordinary scientists, Dr. Jill Barganetti, an African-American biologist who's doing groundbreaking work in cancer research. And Evelyn was very Evelyn. She would come to the lab. She'd have a whole conversation about cancer research. And then she would bring a little gift bag for everybody in the lab of some Estee Lauder products.
Well, bravo for this Leonard Lauder Historic Nursing School.
It's actually named it after, it's Evelyn Lauder Nurse Practitioner Program. So he named it, he wanted to name it after
wonderful.
Evelyn. Leonard, both of them believed in the importance of healthcare. I mean, obviously, through their commitment to science, but they both, and Leonard has a very big vision of supporting, and he's 100% right, supporting the elevation of nurses, because our nurses obviously deliver so much of the care.
Well, with COVID, it was essential care, essential.
Absolutely. Care. And they've been real leaders, and he's really made it possible now for more women to move up in the profession and really be leaders, in the hospitals, and in both the delivery, but also the planning and execution of healthcare within the system.
And then I believe you also have the Silberman School of Social Work up in East Harlem, another extraordinary program that was created during your tenure.
So one of the things that I think has been a great, really positive change is that many people may remember the social work school with Hunter was always, so highly respected. It was in the Upper East Side. And through a real estate swap with Dan Brodsky, we were able to move it and create a new campus up in East Harlem. And that really allowed us to engage our incredible social workers with one of the most challenged communities, socially, educationally, financially, health-wise in the country. So we're very engaged with that community. We didn't just move up there. We're really living our mission by supporting the nonprofits and the government agencies and reaching out to people in that neighborhood. Nursing, I think, is very interesting. Cindy, I always, really like to make the point of how challenging it is to become a nurse. I mean, people think about nurses delivering, the kind care, but they are so highly trained as scientists. And it is so important, that they have the college degrees and more education, because the more education a nurse has, the better the health outcome of the patient will be. So we're very, very proud of our undergraduate nursing program and our graduate, and then we've added doctorates to keep educating our nurses to deliver that care.
Well, it seems that you're both medically strong, artistically strong, literature, social sciences, and then even the Dalai Lama steps in. So you're spiritually, you're spiritually connected at Hunter, and I believe you, and the Hunter Hawk is always beside you in photographs. So, how did the Dalai Lama? I mean, someone obviously knew him. He visited a few times.
We had a wonderful distinguished professor, Peter Kwong, who done a lot of work in Chinese research, a lot of work, sort of spearheading the arts in China. And he came to know the Dalai Lama and asked him if he would come to Hunter. So we were privileged to actually host him twice. And he loved coming to Roosevelt House. And he came in and he told a story about how when he was very young, when he was made the Dalai Lama, they would send presents. And he told the story how Roosevelt had sent him a watch, and he remembered the whole story. So it was he really connected to the history of Roosevelt as well. You really want to engage the community. So we've really worked hard at inviting all of our public programs open to the community, the art galleries. If you're over 60 in New York State, you can audit classes free.
Really?
At Hunter. So we really try to be a resource because there's a lot of students that come into the neighborhood, and we want to, we really want to give back and, really be part of the community. Very important. We have a Hunter Helpers program that people can sign up to learn about people who babysit or help create parties or different things to keep students working while they're at school.
I love the fact that you raised $14 million by putting advertisements in the New York Times. It was, what was it called? The Mother's Day campaign?
Mother's Day campaign, yes.
Just mention what that was, because that's brilliant. Another one of your creative fundraising and, sort of just clever ways to tweak things and raise money while honoring women.
Honoring women, and important women, your mother. So when I had started, as soon as I could get the Hunter, before I got out the tour, somebody would interrupt and say, my mother went to Hunter, my grandmother went to Hunter, my aunt went to Hunter. And then you realize this person was very successful in what they did. And you saw how the power of education. So think about it, Cindy. I mean, women did not have access. I mean, you have an incredible story, and women in your family being educated, but in the 30s and 40s, even the 50s, often women would not have the option to go to college. So it was not that surprising that particularly men who were doing well had mothers who were educated and pushed them towards education. So I didn't want to lose that connection. And I started to realize how many there were. And I started to say, well, if your mother was so important to you and your grandmother's so important to you, it's Mother's Day. Why don't you give a scholarship in her name? How many scarves can you buy her, right? How many plants can you buy her? If you get a scholarship, and if you gave up to 50% of our tuition, you got her name listed in a New York Times ad.
And back then, the tuition was what, $5,000, $6,000?
It's about $5,000. So if you gave $2,500, you got your mother's name in an ad, and now it's about $3,000. So we started with a quarter of a page in the Sunday Times. This year we had to make smaller type to get all the donors' names into 2 full pages. And it was very special, and the donors get to meet their students. And again, it's so many of the same stories. I mean, the New York names, the Zabars and the Silversteins and the Lauders. I mean, this was like backbone of New York, these incredible women. And all of them, started often with nothing. Tuition was free. Maybe daddy wasn't going to pay to send you to college, but it was free, and it was in New York, and they would let you go. but it empowered generations of women to do great things and then to keep education as a value in their family.
Well, you define unstoppable. So it was 22 years, and we have 22 years now moving forward. I know there's going to be you're going to shake things up again. You built community, you've made change happen. Basically, you've created and you've continuing to create because of the energy. We need you still to be present. Your energy and your vitality and your spirit and your intelligence and your beauty is all just so special. So I want to thank you for being part of New York City, because Hunter is New York City.
Oh, well, that means so much to me. And I am, this is my home. This is who I am. And I'm very excited about the next chapter. I do have boundless energy, and it's been actually very fun to talk to so many people about what's the next opportunities out there. So thank you for all of us to give us the opportunity to keep talking to the amazing women you have on this show, because I think we all inspire. I know I'm inspired by your listening to your guests, and it just makes it feel like a real community of women making things happen. So thank you for getting our stories out.
Please subscribe to Inside the She Cave, Trailblazers, Innovators, Rule Breakers, wherever you listen to podcasts, including but not limited to Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. If you prefer to watch, you can visit us on YouTube.